Hello, genealogists. It's Craig with Just Genealogy. I've been asked to talk about some books by Hank Peden, and I decided to put together what a proper library collection dealing with Maryland and the Revolutionary War might look like. If I were to put together a full blown, no cost, meaning I had a horrendous budget, and I didn't really have to be selective about what I had to buy, this is what I would have. Now, do I have this? Actually, I do, with the exception of maybe 2 or 3 books, which I wish I had. And it's just because I don't have them in stock. But anyway, let's get started. I'm always in favor, whenever I'm doing any kind of military research, whether it be Revolutionary War or any other war for that matter, that I'm going to want to look, the first thing I'm going to want to look at is the census. Well, since the census doesn't start until 1790, that doesn't work so well in this situation. But there are tax lists and census records and those kinds of things in Maryland relating to the time period of the Revolution. And the first one I would look at would be Betty Sterling Carruthers' 1776 Census of Maryland. And what my purpose in doing that would be to locate what county the Maryland soldier actually lived in. Because you might not have an idea, you might just know he was in the Revolution and he was from Maryland, and it's important to hone in on a county. The other place I'm going to look is Maryland Oaths of Fidelity. And again, my purpose there is to locate a county. I may not be able to locate the soldier, but I may be able to locate people of the same surname, and they may be clustered, and they may only exist in one county or two, and not across the entire state. So again, I'm limiting the number of places that I have to look at before I actually get to the individual I'm looking for. Now, these Maryland Oaths of Fidelity were created by an act of the legislature in 1777, and they dealt with all free males over 18, and they had to inscribe their names on the list no later than March 1778. Also, there are Quaker, Mennonite, and Tunker males who were solemnly and sincerely and truly declared and affirmed that they held to the principles expressed in the oath and that they were willing to affix their names. There are lists of jurors, those who took the oath, and some non-jurors, those who did not take the oath, and they're listed alphabetically by each county. One of the problems with oaths of fidelity in Maryland, and in other states for that matter, is you want to be careful as to who they're making the oath to. They may be making an oath of fidelity to George, King of England, and that's not what we're looking for. Those people would be loyalists, and we'll talk about them later. There are also a couple of general reference books that may be helpful to you. I don't use them very much, but they're part of my collection, and they're sort of, I don't look first here, but I might look last here, and this might be the only place where I find something, because these things that I'm about to talk about tend to be generally material that these authors found somewhere else other than the normal places. Specifically, this one by Broombaugh deals with Revolutionary records, and chiefly those that subscribe to the Oath of Fidelity and support in Calvert, Frederick, Montgomery, and Washington. So there is a little overlap with the Carruthers book. There are extensive lists of loyal civil servants in Prince George's, constables, surveyors, justices, grand jurors, etc. And it basically embraces about 5,000 people derived from manuscript sources, both in private and public collections, that pretty much can't be found anywhere else. Henry Wright Newman did pretty much the same thing in looking at pension claims and bounty land applications. And the coverage includes Revolutionary War pensioners, Maryland federal bound land grants, and Maryland soldiers whose service was established through other records. And there are also some marriages proved through Maryland pension applications and list of Maryland soldiers whose Revolutionary service was in other states. We have a lot of Marylanders who will join like the German regiment, which is sort of can't make up its mind whether it's Maryland or Pennsylvania, so they may be serving with other people. Another example is Morgan's Rifles drew from a variety of places, but Morgan is from Virginia. Another book is Saffold's Records of the Revolutionary War. Although this one focuses largely on Virginia, it includes information from New England states, New York, Pennsylvania, and Maryland, arranged by regiment, company, and corps. And there's a list of prisoners, half-pay acts of the Continental Congress, revolutionary pension laws, and a list of officers in the Continental Army who acquired the right to half-pay, commutation, and lands. Now, one of the best books to have is the one done by the Maryland Historical Society on muster rolls and other records of service of Maryland troops in the American Revolution. And this is probably will be the most expensive book that you're going to buy to deal with Maryland troops. It lists muster rolls, payrolls, land office records, Continental service. It also includes lists of the flying camp, which is militia who went outside of Maryland, Maryland troop musters, the German regiment, artillery rolls, rolls of men in Lee's Dragoons, and Pulaski and Armand's legions, naval rolls, invalid returns, and rolls of escaped and exchanged prisoners. So this pretty much is a number one book in my idea of. It may be available because it's actually the Archives of Maryland, Volume 18. It may be available online from the Maryland Hall of Records, but I've never looked. I prefer books. Now, the best book for the militia in Maryland, when you still don't know what county the individual lives in, is The Maryland Militia in the Revolutionary War by Clements and Wright. And this provides an overview of the Maryland militia in the war and a compilation of the names and officers of men from what records they could get their hands on. It's about 15,000 men. These are all guys who did not serve in the Continental Service, and it's one of my first stops if I don't know what county the individual lived in. Now, if I know what county the individual lived in, Peden has created a large volume of work dealing with individual records at the county level for soldiers. There's Anne Arundel, there's Baltimore Town and Baltimore County. You remember in this time period that Baltimore City is not yet an independent city. That doesn't happen until 1859. So this is Baltimore County and Baltimore City together. There's Caroline. There's Calvert and St. Mary's. He's combined some adjacent counties together because their total work is kind of small. Cecil County deals with the 2nd, 18th, and 20th Maryland militia from Cecil. And it also contains information about Maryland Continental Line, as well as those who rendered aid and signed the Oath of Allegiance. And that's true of all of these books. Charles County, Dorchester, Frederick. Now, when you're dealing with Frederick, you want to be sure that you look at Washington and Montgomery also, because they're created in 1776 out of Frederick. So you want to be able to, depending on where they lived in Frederick County prior to the Revolution, you may have to look in Washington or Montgomery, whether it's east, west, or in between. Hartford just got in under the wire. That county was formed in 1773. Kent and Queen Anne's, Prince George's, Montgomery. Don't forget you may have to look in Frederick. Note that the years start in 1776. Talbot. This is one of the older versions of the series. We still have 5 or 6 copies of Revolutionary Patriots of Talbot left in stock, just waiting for the opportunity so it can match the rest of the series. And then, as I said, look in Frederick when you're dealing with Washington County, because this volume begins in 1776. You always want to pay attention to county formation. Then there's Worcester and Somerset County. I hope I pronounced that right. Maybe it's Worcester. I never can get it straight. I don't have any relatives there, so. There is a first supplement, meaning as soon as he finished all this stuff, he found more stuff. Hank did. And it's described when we published this book, it was described as the final book in the series. Should never describe things as final because there's a second supplement. Now, you may need to look at both of these supplements if when you get to the county and you look in the county, you can't find the person where you expect to find them. They may be in one of these supplements, and especially for Harford County, there are lots of soldiers in the second supplement from Harford that are not in the original Harford volume. Now, looking at Maryland as a whole, we see that we're missing some counties. Well, Allegheny County was established in 1789 from Washington. Allegheny is where all the bounty land is. Carroll was established in 1837 from Baltimore and Frederick. Carroll was where I came from to come to North Carolina, where I am now. Garrett was established in 1872, so long after the Revolution. Howard was established in 1851 from Anne Arundel and Baltimore, and Wycomico was established in 1867 from Somerset and Worcester, or Worcester, whatever it is. So you would think I would know what that was. I must be getting old. So anyway, these counties are missing. If you've got someone who lives in Carroll County, then you're going to want to look in Baltimore and Frederick for information if they lived in what is Carroll County today. Depending on the east side, it would be Baltimore. On the west side would be Frederick. And the middle line is right about where Westminster is. Now, there are a couple of books on colonels and generals from Maryland. John Howard was the regimental commander of the 2nd Maryland Regiment, and the chapters of this book, the author of this book, John Beeks, has a love for Maryland, and he writes a lot of books about Maryland officers, and we're going to go through them. And this one includes the campaigning in the North, battling for South Carolina, the triumph of Cowpens. He headed a Maryland regiment at Cowpens, the 2nd, of course. The race to the Dan after the Battle of Cowpens, Guilford Courthouse, the second fight for Camden, Hobkirk's Hill, the final campaign. And this guy will eventually, in 1788, become governor. Eventually, he will be in the U.S. Senate. He becomes one hell of a politician after the war. And as you might imagine, Howard County is named for him. Another individual who headed up a regiment in Maryland and then would become a brigadier general was Otho Williams. He joined a Maryland company of riflemen as a junior officer, participated in the siege of Boston, the defense of Fort Washington. He was wounded, captured by the British, was promoted to the colonel of the 6th Maryland Regiment while a POW, and following his exchange, he commanded a regiment at Monmouth before going south. In the South, his regiment was at Camden, Guilford Courthouse, Holbrook's Hill, and Eutaw Springs. He was promoted to brigadier general at Eutaw Springs. This is a great book. Another great book is the Baron de Kalb, but I only add it because de Kalb led Maryland troops in the Southern Campaign. He died at the Battle of Camden, and this is a very insightful book by Beeks into de Kalb. It's probably one of my favorite person books about the Revolution. There is Guns on the Chesapeake, the winning of America's independence. Although there's not a major battle going on in Maryland during the war, there are a few landings and a few major skirmishes as people head in other directions. So there are bombardments and naval conflicts and blockades and pillaging raids and burnings of shipyards, warehouses, homes, and farms, and lots of people die. And there is the Battle of the Capes in Yorktown, and that pretty much ends it all, one would think. But then there is the Battle of the Barges, said to be the bloodiest naval battle on the bay during the war, and it occurs in 1783. This book focuses on both Maryland and Virginia in the war. So after the war, people get pensions, and there are The pensions, of course, are on fold 3. The index to final pension payments is on fold 3. But there are abstracts for the pension offices in Baltimore, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., and Wheeling. And when you're dealing with Maryland, you may have to deal with any of these, although Baltimore is the place that I would start for these selected final pension payment vouchers. There is state bounty land, and it's out there in Allegheny County in western Maryland. It was only provided for service in the Maryland line, so anyone with militia doesn't get any. So this is the place where you're going to find the state awards of bounty land. I would recommend that you read the Maryland section of the Revolutionary War Bounty Land Grants awarded to state governments by Lloyd Boxtruck. And you can either get that book, which I think is worth doing, or you can read the Maryland. It's on Ancestry, so you can read the Maryland section on Ancestry if you don't want to get the book. There are also public service claims for Maryland, much like we see for Virginia. And we've looked at the Virginia ones previously, but these are the Maryland ones, and it provides names, county of residence, nature of the service, dates of the service were rendered for those that rendered aid to the Maryland government and the military by furnishing flour, corn, wheat, rye, hay, beef, mutton, pork, bacon, and other provisions. Nursing sick and wounded, boarding and clothing soldiers, riding express, repairing guns, manufacturing salt, milling grain, loaning money, providing boats, wagons, horses, and cattle for public use, and making weapons. So this is a good place to start if you've got someone who possibly did not serve in the war but was still supportive and you want to generate information about how to verify and confirm their support so that you can do something like join the DAR even though you don't have a soldier. There is a book on loyalists which is out of print. It's probably only available on Amazon, called Maryland Loyalists in the American Revolution. I really enjoy this book. I used it when I did my talks on loyalists for Legacy Family Tree, of which I have 2 out there. And I just totally enjoy this book. I'll just leave that at that. There is some historical fiction out there by John Corandas. It's called these 3 volumes are called the Old Line Chronicles, The Willing War, The Vagabond Army, and The Well-Fought Day. These are about to leave us. He's going to another publisher, so we don't have very many copies of these left at this point. So today I've talked about creating a Maryland library for dealing with the Revolutionary War. If there's some other state you would like me to do, I will be happy to do that. Just let me know, and we'll do that, move it on down the road. This has been Just Genealogy, where we're converting people doing genealogy into genealogists day by day. If you haven't subscribed, I'd appreciate it if you would. If you have not hit that bell so that you'll be notified when a new video comes out, you should do that also. By now, you all know what to do. But do tell your friends. Our numbers are growing, and I'd like to see them grow more. Thank you so very much. Today's Memorial Day. Think of the people that we have to memorialize, and I will be sure to have that single malt scotch tonight before I retire. Bye.